You know what breaks my heart? Every single day, I meet another wonderful woman who's given everything she has to others, only to find herself empty, exhausted, and wondering where it all went wrong. Just last week, I sat with Sarah. She's a brilliant pediatric nurse who spent 20 years healing children, raising her own family, and being there for everyone who needed her. And do you know what she told me through her tears? I feel like a ghost in my own life. That hit me right in the gut. Because Sarah's story isn't unique. It's the story of millions of kind, caring women who were taught that being nice meant putting themselves last. Women who learn to smile and nod while their own dreams gather dust. Women who become so good at taking care of others that they've forgotten how to take care of themselves. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this question. When was the last time you said, no, someone without immediately feeling guilty? When was the last time you put yourself first without hearing that little voice in your head calling you selfish? I see those nods. I see those tears. And I want you to know it. This isn't your fault. This isn't about you being too nice or too kind or too giving. This is about a profound misunderstanding of what true kindness really means. You see, somewhere along the way, we got it all wrong. We started believing that being nice meant being a doormat, that being kind meant having no boundaries, that being loving meant exhausting ourselves for others. And that's not just wrong, it's destructive. It's destroying the very essence of who we are and what we have to offer the world. I remember meeting Eleanor Roosevelt's granddaughter at a conference in 2012. She shared something fascinating about her grandmother, one of the most influential women in history. She said, "My grandmother wasn't nice, she was kind." And there's a world of difference between the two. That statement changed my entire perspective on this issue. You see, niceness, the kind that's making so many women suffer, is about pleasing others. It's about conforming. It's about making yourself small so others can feel big. It's about saying yes when every fiber of your being is screaming no. But kindness, real kindness, comes from a place of strength. It comes from knowing your worth. It comes from having enough self-respect to set healthy boundaries. Think about it this way. When you're on an airplane, what do they tell you about oxygen masks? Put yours on first, right? But how many of us actually live that way? How many of us make sure we can breathe before trying to help others breathe? Instead, we're running up and down the metaphorical airplane aisle, helping everyone else with their masks, while we're slowly suffocating. I want to share a story that really illustrates this point. In 2014, I worked with a woman named Margaret, a high school principal in Detroit. For 15 years, she'd been the first to arrive and the last to leave. She knew every student's name, attended every event, answered every email at 2 a.m. She was, by all accounts, the nicest principal anyone had ever met. But one day, she collapsed in her office, severe exhaustion, the doctor said. While she was in the hospital, something interesting happened. The school didn't fall apart. The teachers stepped up. The students took more responsibility. And Margaret, she had an epiphany that changed her life.
She realized that by trying to be everything to everyone, she'd actually been enabling dependency. By never saying no, she'd been teaching her staff and students that they didn't need to develop their own problem-solving skills. Her niceness wasn't serving anyone. It was hurting everyone, including herself.
This brings me to the first crucial understanding we need to embrace. Being nice isn't the same as being kind. Being nice is about seeking approval. Being kind is about living with integrity. Let me break this down further. When you're being nice, you're often saying yes when you move, avoiding conflict at all costs, putting everyone else's needs before your own, apologizing for things that aren't your fault, pretending to agree when you don't, taking on other people's responsibilities, ignoring your own boundaries to keep others happy. But when you're being truly kind, you're being honest with yourself and others, setting healthy boundaries, taking care of yourself so you can genuinely help others, speaking your truth with compassion, allowing others to grow through their own challenges, respecting yourself as much as you respect others, making decisions based on wisdom rather than fear. The difference is profound. And here's what's fascinating. When you start shifting from niceness to kindness, something magical happens. The people who truly matter in your life don't love you less, they respect you more. Those who fall away, they were never there for the real you anyway. I remember counseling a young woman named Jennifer in 2013. She was a talented artist who spent all her time helping her friends promote their art while their own canvases sat blank. She was being nice when she finally started saying no to others and yes to her own creativity. Something remarkable happened. Within a year, she had her first solo exhibition. And you know what? Those same friends she thought she'd disappoint, they were her biggest supporters. The truth is, the world doesn't need more nice girls who suffer in silence. The world needs more strong, authentic women who understand that true kindness starts with being kind to themselves. The world needs women who recognize that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's sacred. Think about the oxygen mask again. When you put yours on first, you're not just saving yourself, you're becoming capable of truly helping others. You're moving from a place of depletion to a place of abundance, from a place of resentment to a place of genuine giving. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself 5 years from now if you continue down the path of being nice at the expense of your own well-being. Really see it, feel it. What does your health look like? Your relationships, your dreams, your sense of self? Now imagine a different path. Imagine yourself 5 years from now if you start choosing kindness over niceness, if you start honoring your boundaries, if you start treating yourself with the same compassion you show others. What changes? How does it feel to stand in your truth? To give from a place of fullness rather than depletion. The path from nice to kind isn't easy. It requires courage. It requires facing the fear that people might not like the real you. It requires dealing with the guilt that's been programmed into us since childhood. But let me tell you something. It's worth it. It's worth it because the alternative is a life of quiet desperation, of watching your own light dim while trying to illuminate everyone else's path. Let me share something powerful with you that happened in my office back in 2010. A young woman, let's call her Rachel, came to see me. She was a successful corporate lawyer, the kind of person who seemed to have it all together on the outside. But she sat down and did something that broke every rule of being nice. She told the truth. I'm exhausted, she said, from being the person everyone else needs me to be. That's when she shared a metaphor that I've never forgotten. She said, I feel like I'm a bank that keeps giving out loans, but nobody ever makes any deposits. Isn't that exactly how it feels sometimes? We keep giving and giving, making withdrawals from our emotional bank account, until one day we check the balance and realize we're completely overdrawn. But here's what's really interesting, and I want you to lean into this truth. The world doesn't teach nice girls how to make deposits into their own emotional bank accounts. Instead, we're taught to feel guilty for even having needs in the first. We're taught that needing anything for ourselves is somehow selfish or wrong. How many of you apologize before asking for what you need? I'm sorry to bother you, but I hate to ask, but I know you're busy, but raise your hand if you've started a request with any of these phrases in the last week. Look around the room. See all those hands? That's not coincidence. That's conditioning. You see, nice girls are taught to make themselves small, to take up less space, to smooth things over, to keep the peace at any cost. And the cost, my friends, is astronomical. We pay with our dreams, our health, our happiness, and sometimes even our... I remember working with a woman named Catherine in 2014. She was what everyone called the office angel, always organizing birthday celebrations, covering for colleagues, staying late to help others meet their deadlines. One day, she developed severe migraines. When her doctor asked her about stress, she said, and this is crucial, "Oh, I don't have any stress, I'm fine. Everyone else is so much more stressed than me." Do you see what happened there? She was so conditioned to minimize her own experiences that she couldn't even acknowledge her suffering to her doctor. Her body had to literally scream in pain before she would pay attention to her own needs. This brings us to what I call the nice girl's paradox. The more we try to be nice, the less authentic our relationships become. The more we sacrifice ourselves for others, the less we actually have to give. The more we avoid conflict, the more internal conflict we create. Let's break down the 3 major patterns that keep nice girls trapped in cycles of suffering. The approval addiction. First, there's what I call the approval addiction. Nice girls become masters at reading rooms and adjusting themselves to whatever they think others want them to be. It's like being a chameleon, constantly changing colors to blend in with your environment. But here's the tragic part. While you're so busy changing colors, you forget your own true color. I worked with a talented musician in 2012 who played in wedding bands to pay the bills. She was so good at playing what other people wanted to hear that she completely lost touch with her own musical voice. When I asked her what kind of music she liked to play, she burst into tears because she honestly didn't know anymore. The responsibility overload. The second pattern is the responsibility overload. Nice girls don't just take on their own responsibilities. They feel responsible for everyone else's feelings, success, and well-being too. It's as if they're carrying the emotional luggage of everyone around them. Think about your own life. How many times have you felt responsible for someone else's bad mood, a project failing, even when you did your part, a relationship ending, even when you gave it your all, find someone else's happiness or success, fixing other people's mistakes, making sure everyone else is comfortable, maintaining family harmony at your own expense, the authenticity amnesia. The third pattern is what I call authenticity amnesia. This happens when you've spent so long being what everyone else needs that you literally forget who you are. You forget your own preferences, your own dreams, your own voice. I remember counseling a woman in 2008 who couldn't answer basic questions about herself. What's your favorite color? What do you like to do for fun? What makes you angry? She had spent so long being everyone else's version of nice that she'd forgotten her own truth. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something I want you to write down if you're taking notes. The world doesn't actually want you to be nice. The world needs you to be real. Think about the people you most admire. Are they nices in the way we've been talking about? Or are they authentic, genuine, and true to themselves? Think about the women who've changed the world. Rosa Parks wasn't being nice when she refused to give up her. Mother Teresa wasn't being nice when she challenged the established systems to help the poor. Maya Angelou wasn't being nice when she spoke her truth through her poetry. These women were being something far more powerful than nice. They were being authentic. They were being true. They were being themselves. Let me share a powerful exercise I developed called the truth mirror. Every morning, I want you to look in the mirror and ask yourself these three questions. What am I pretending not to know? Who am I trying to please? If I wasn't trying to be nice, what would I say or do? The answers might shock you. They might scare you. But they will always lead you closer to your truth. You see, the journey from nice to authentic isn't about becoming less kind or less caring. It's about becoming more real. It's about understanding that your truth, your feelings, your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. Not more, but certainly not less. I worked with a woman named Patricia in 2015, a high school teacher who spent 30 years being the ISIS teacher everyone could count on. She covered other teachers' classes, took on extra committees, never said no to a student who needed it. But one day, she realized something profound. She said to me, I've taught thousands of students to find their voice, but I've never used my own. That realization changed everything for her. She started setting boundaries. She started speaking her truth. And you know what happened? Her students didn't respect her less. They respected her more because now they weren't just learning subject matter from her. They were learning how to be authentic. Now, I want to share something that might make some of you uncomfortable. And that's exactly why we need to talk about it. In 2013, I conducted a workshop with 100 successful women, all leaders in their fields. What would you do differently if you weren't afraid of being called difficult, selfish, or unlikable? The room went so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. And then one by one, these accomplished women started sharing their truth. One said she'd quit her job and start her own business. Another said she'd tell her husband she didn't want to host his family every holiday. A third said she'd stop pretending to be interested in things she hated, just to make other people comfortable. But here's what really struck me. These weren't just random desires. These were their authentic truths being suffocated by the need to be nice. That's when I realized something profound. Being nice isn't just a behavior. It's a prison we build for ourselves, brick by brick, Smile by force smile. Let me tell you about Maria. She was a brilliant researcher I met in 2014 who made a groundbreaking discovery in her field. But when it came time to present her findings, she prefaced every statement with, "I might be wrong, but," or "this is just my opinion." She was so conditioned to be nice, to be non-threatening, that she couldn't even own her expertise without apologizing for it. Do you know what happened? A male colleague took her research, presented it with confidence, and got the credit. When I asked her why she didn't speak up, she said something that haunts me to this day. "I didn't want to cause trouble." This is what I call the nice girls tax. And we're paying it every single day. We pay it in lost opportunities, in diminished joy, and compromised dreams. We pay it in headaches and anxiety and depression. We pay it in relationships where we give everything and receive crumbs in return. But here's the good news. We can stop paying this tax today, right now. And I'm going to show you how. The first step is understanding what I call the 3 permissions. These are the permissions you must give yourself to break free from the nice girl track. Permission to disappoint. This is the big one, isn't it? Our biggest fear as nice girls is disappointing others. But here's the truth. Disappointing others is not just okay, it's necessary. It's necessary for growth, for authenticity, for true connection. I remember working with a woman named Alexandra in 2011. She was planning her wedding, and everything about it, from the venue to the dress, was chosen to please her mother-in-law. When I asked her what she wanted, she broke down crying and said, "I don't even know anymore." That's when we started practicing the art of disappointing others with grace. She ended up changing everything about her wedding. Yes, her mother-in-law was disappointed. But you know what? The world didn't end. And Alexandra had a wedding that truly reflected who she was, not who others wanted her to be. Permission to be disliked. This is crucial. So I want everyone to say this out loud with me. It's okay if not everyone likes me. Say it again. One more time. How does that feel? Uncomfortable? Liberating? Both? You see, the need to be universally liked is like carrying a 100-pound weight everywhere you go. It affects every decision you make, every word you speak, every boundary you set or don't set. But here's the truth. Being disliked by some people is the price of being authentic. I worked with a corporate executive named Janet in 2009 who was so focused on being liked that she never gave direct feedback to her team. As a result, performance suffered, deadlines were missed, and she was working nights and weekends to fix others' mistakes. When she finally started giving honest feedback, yes, some people were upset, but her team's performance improved dramatically, and the people who truly valued growth and excellence respected her more. Permission to be imperfect. This is perhaps the most important permission of all. Nice girls often feel they need to be perfect, perfectly helpful, perfectly understanding, perfectly available, perfectly put together. But this pursuit of perfection is exhausting and, more importantly, it's inauthentic. Let me share something personal. In 2007, I was giving a lecture series on self-empowerment while going through a difficult divorce. The nicest thing to do would have been to hide my struggle and present a perfect facade. Instead, I chose to be honest with my audience about my journey. The response was overwhelming, not because they were impressed by my perfection, but because they could relate to my humanity. Now, once you've given yourself these 3 permissions, it's time to implement what I call the authentic action framework. This is a practical approach to breaking free from the nice girl syndrome. Step 1, the truth pause. Before saying yes to anything, take what I call a truth pause. Count to 10 and ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Am I saying yes out of obligation or authentic desire? What would happen if I said no?
Who am I trying to please with this decision?
Step 2, the boundary declaration. Start small, but start somewhere. Choose one area of your life where you've been overgiving and declare a new boundary. It might be as simple as, I don't answer work emails after 7 p.m. or I need Sunday mornings for myself. The authenticity practice, every day, do one thing that reflects your true desires, even if it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's ordering what you really want at lunch instead of going along with the group. Maybe it's expressing an unpopular opinion in a meeting. Maybe it's wearing that bold outfit you love but have been afraid to wear. Let me tell you about Sarah, a kindergarten teacher I worked with in 2015. She started with something small, wearing her natural curly hair instead of straightening it every day to look professional. It seems minor, but it was her first step in choosing authenticity over approval. That one decision started a ripple effect that transformed her entire life. But here's what's crucial to understand. This journey isn't linear. You'll have days when you fall back into old patterns, days when being nice feels safer than being real, days when you apologize for things that aren't your fault or say yes when you desperately want to say no. That's okay, because this isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about gradually replacing the habit of niceness with the practice of authenticity. Every time you choose authenticity over niceness, you're not just changing your own life. You're changing the world. You're showing other women what's possible. You're breaking the cycle of suffering that nice girls have endured for generations. Let me tell you about something that happened at a women's leadership conference in 2012 that changed my entire perspective on this issue. A CEO was sharing her success story, and someone asked her, "What's the secret to having it all?" Her response was unexpected. She said, "I don't have it all. I have what I chose. And I chose to stop being nice and start being real." That's what we're really talking about here. The power of conscious choosing. Because here's the truth that nice girls aren't taught. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Every time you override your own needs to be nice, you're choosing someone else's comfort over your own truth. Let's talk about what I call the 4 relationships that transform when you stop being nice and start being authentic. The relationship with yourself. This is the foundation of everything. When you're trapped in the nice girl pattern, you're essentially in an abusive relationship with yourself. You dismiss your own needs, silence your own voice, and override your own intuition. I worked with a woman named Linda in 2013 who kept a nice girl journal for a month. Every time she said yes when she wanted to say no, every time she apologized unnecessarily, every time she swallowed her truth to keep the peace, she wrote it down. At the end of the month, she read it back and burst into tears. "If someone treated my daughter the way I treat myself," she said, "I'd be furious." That's the awakening we need. Because until you change your relationship with yourself, nothing else can truly change. The relationship with time. Nice girls have a peculiar relationship with time. They treat everyone else's time as precious while seeing their own time as expendable. They'll drop everything to help someone else but feel guilty asking for 5 minutes of someone's time for themselves. In 2008, I met a brilliant artist named Rebecca who was always finding time to help other artists with their projects but could never find time for her own art. One day, I asked her to track her time for a week. The results were staggering. She was spending 30 hours a week helping others with their creative projects while her own canvas remained blank. That's when we developed what I call the time integrity practice. Every Sunday night, she would look at her calendar and ask 3 questions. What am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to by saying yes to this? Is this exchange aligned with my true priorities? The relationship with others. This is where it gets really interesting. Nice girls often fear that being authentic will damage their relationships. But here's what actually happens. Yes, some relationships change or end, but the ones that remain become deeper, more genuine, and more fulfilling. Let me share a powerful story. In 2014, I worked with a woman named Michelle, who was the designated fixer in her friend group. Every crisis, every breakup, every drama, they all landed on her doorstep at 2 a.m. She was exhausted, but afraid that if she set boundaries, she'd lose her friends. When she finally started setting boundaries, like not answering phone calls after 10 p.m., unless it was a true emergency, something fascinating happened. 2 friends stopped calling altogether, but the rest of her relationships deepened. Why? Because they started relating to her as a whole person, not just as their personal crisis counselor. The relationship with success. Nice girls often have the complicated relationship with success. They're taught to downplay their achievements, to make others comfortable with their success, to apologize for their ambitions. I remember working with a woman in 2015 who got a major promotion Instead of celebrating, she spent weeks worrying about how to tell her peers without making them feel bad. She was literally dimming her own light to avoid outshining others. This brings us to what I call the success paradox. The more you try to make others comfortable with your success, the more uncomfortable you become with it yourself. Now let's talk about what happens in your body when you stop being nice and start being authentic. Because this isn't just an emotional transformation, it's a physical one too. I want you to think about how your body feels when you're being nice against your true feelings. The tight jaw from forced smiles, the cramped stomach from swallowed words, the tense shoulders from carrying others' burdens, the headaches from overthinking every interaction, the exhaustion from constantly performing. These aren't just random symptoms. They're your body's protest against inauthenticity. In 2010, I conducted a study with a group of women who committed to 30 days of authentic living. The physical changes were remarkable. 70 reported improved sleep. 65 experienced fewer headaches. 80 noted increased energy levels. 75 reported reduced anxiety symptoms. But here's what's really fascinating. Their relationships improved too, even though that's what they feared would suffer most. Why? Because authentic people attract authentic relationships. Let me share a technique I call the body truth check. It's simple but powerful. Before making any decision, pause and scan your body. Notice your breathing. Is it shallow or deep? Check your shoulders. Are they tense or relaxed? Feel your stomach. Is it tight or calm? Observe your jaw. Is it clenched or soft? Your body will tell you the truth your nice girl conditioning tries to hide. I worked with a corporate executive named Susan in 2011 who used this technique before every meeting. She discovered that her body would tense up before saying yes to additional projects, even though her words were saying no problem. That awareness became her guide to more authentic decisions. This brings us to what I call the authenticity ripple effect. When you start living authentically, you create permission for others to do the same. It's like throwing a stone into a pond. The ripples keep expanding outward. I saw this beautifully illustrated when a woman named Angela attended one of my workshops in 2013. She was a high school counselor who had always been the nice one who took on extra duties without complaint. When she started setting boundaries and speaking her truth, something unexpected happened. Other teachers started doing the same. The entire school culture began to shift toward more authentic communication. That's the power of one woman choosing authenticity over niceness. She doesn't just change her own life. She changes the lives of everyone around her. Now, I want to address something important, the fear. The fear that if you stop being nice, you'll become mean. The fear that if you start setting boundaries, you'll become selfish. The fear that if you speak your truth, you'll become harsh. These fears are normal, but they're based on a false dichotomy. Being authentic doesn't mean being unkind. In fact, true kindness can only come from a place of authenticity. As we move toward our conclusion, I want to share something profound that happened in 2007 during a retreat I was leading. A woman named Grace stood up and said something that changed the energy of the entire room. She said, "I just realized that I've spent my whole life being so nice that I forgot to be powerful." That statement, that recognition, is where true transformation begins. Because here's the truth we need to embrace. Nice isn't power. Nice isn't strength. Nice isn't even kindness. Nice is a costume we wear to make others comfortable, and it's time to take it off. Let me share what I call the 7 sacred truths that every recovering nice girl needs to embrace. Your discomfort matters. In 2014, I worked with a woman named Diana who kept a discomfort diary for a month. Every time she felt uncomfortable but pushed through it to be nice, she wrote it down. At the end of the month, she had 147 entries. That's 147 times she ignored her own inner wisdom to maintain her nice girl image. Your discomfort is not just noise to be ignored. It's wisdom asking to be heard. When something feels wrong in your body, in your heart, in your gut, that's not weakness. That's your authentic self trying to protect you. Conflict is not violence. Nice girls often confuse conflict with cruelty. They think that disagreeing with someone is the same as hurting them. But here's the truth. Healthy conflict is how we grow, how we learn, how we become more authentic. I remember working with a mother and daughter in 2012. The mother had spent years being nice, never disagreeing, never expressing her true feelings. The daughter said something remarkable. "Mom, when you agree with everything, I feel like I don't really know you at all. Your dreams don't need permission." In 2010, I met a woman who had kept her dream of becoming a writer secret for 20 years because her family believed that nice girls don't seek attention. She had literally buried her talent to maintain her nice girl image. Your dreams, your ambitions, your desires, they don't need to be modest or humble or nice. They can be big, bold, and demanding. They can take up space. They can make noise. Anger is not unfeminine. This is a big one. Nice girls are taught that anger is ugly, unfeminine, inappropriate. But here's what I want you to understand. Anger is often the appropriate response to injustice, to disrespect, to violation of boundaries. In 2013, I worked with a woman who had never expressed anger in her marriage, not once in 15 years. When she finally allowed herself to feel and express her anger appropriately, her husband said, "I feel like I'm finally meeting the real you." Your no is sacred. Every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to yourself. Every boundary you set is an act of self-love. Every time you choose your own truth over others' expectations, you're healing generations of nice girl conditioning. Authenticity attracts authenticity. When you stop being nice and start being real, yes, some people will fall away. Let them. They're making space for authentic connections to enter your life. Your voice matters. Not just when it's agreeing, not just when it's supporting, not just when it's nice. Your voice matters when it's strong, when it's angry, when it's saying uncomfortable truths. Now, let me share what I call the liberation practices. Daily actions that will help you break free from the nice girl prison. The morning declaration. I choose my truth over others' comfort. Say it out loud. Let your body feel the power of these words. The boundary bell. Set an alarm on your phone to ring 3 times a day. When it rings, ask yourself, what boundary do I need to set right now? The truth timer. Then 5 minutes each evening writing down every truth you didn't speak that day out of niceness. Then ask yourself, what would it cost me to speak this truth tomorrow? The power pause. Before responding to any request, pause and ask, if I were choosing from my power rather than my conditioning, what would my answer be? The authenticity audit? At the end of each week, ask yourself, where did I compromise my truth to be nice? Where did I honor my authenticity despite the urge to be nice? What would I do differently next week? Now, let me share something powerful about what happens when you commit to this journey. In 2015, just months before my dear friend Wayne Dyer passed away, we had a conversation about transformation. He said something I'll never forget. The universe doesn't respond to niceness. It responds to authenticity. Think about that. Every time you choose niceness over authenticity, you're not just betraying yourself, you're limiting your ability to fulfill your true purpose in the world. I want you to imagine something with me right now. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself 1 year from now having lived fully in your authenticity. See yourself speaking your truth without apologizing, setting boundaries without guilt, pursuing your dreams without shame, loving yourself without conditions, living your life without the constant need to be nice. Feel the freedom in that vision. Feel the power. Feel the peace. Now open your eyes. That version of you isn't just possible, it's waiting. It's waiting for you to make one crucial choice. Will you choose truth over niceness? Will you choose power over pleasing? Will you choose yourself? Because here's what I know for certain. The world doesn't need more nice girls suffering in silence. The world needs women who are fully alive, fully authentic, fully expressed. Your suffering isn't a badge of honor. It's a call to action. Each headache, each sleepless night, each swallowed truth is your authentic self crying out for liberation. I ask, what truth will you speak today? What boundary will you set? What dream will you reclaim? You weren't born nice. Nice was programmed into you. And what was programmed can be unprogrammed. Your freedom starts with one choice, one truth, one moment of choosing yourself over niceness. Make that choice now. Make it today. Make it again tomorrow. Because when you free yourself from the prison of niceness, you don't just change your own life. You change the world. You show other women what's possible. You break the chains of generational conditioning. You create a new legacy of authenticity, power, and truth. The time for being nice is over. The time for being real is now. Stand up, speak up. Show up. Your authentic life is waiting.